People often misunderstand what Morgan Housel was really pointing at. They hear him say that success isn't about intelligence, it's about behavior. And they assume behavior is a choice, something you decide, something you control. But behavior is not where the story begins. Behavior is the output of a system that formed long before you had words for it. You don't wake up in the morning and calculate risk like an economist. You feel your way through decisions, and the feeling you trust the most is the one that keeps you safe. That's not a flaw. That's biology. Your brain did not evolve to maximize returns. It evolved to minimize loss. Morgan Housel explains this in financial language, but the mechanism is older than money. Imagine a city that has been under siege for 1,000 years. Inside, there is an old watchman. His only job is to keep the gates locked. One day, a merchant arrives with a chest of gold, promising to make the city rich. But the watchman refuses to open the gate. To the merchant, the watchman is lazy or stupid. But to the watchman, the gold doesn't matter if a single enemy slipped through the crack. Your brain is that watchman. It does not evolve to maximize returns. It evolved to minimize loss. Survival comes before growth. Stability comes before progress. Always. This is why two people with the same knowledge make completely different choices. One invests, the other waits. One speaks up, the other stays quiet. One leaves what's familiar, the other rationalizes staying, not because one is smarter, but because one system feels safe enough to move. Your brain constantly asks a silent question, not, will this make me successful? Not, is this the optimal move? But, will this threaten my stability? If the answer feels even slightly uncertain, your system does something subtle. It slows you down. It creates doubt. It introduces friction. You call this hesitation. You call it procrastination. You call it overthinking. But from the inside, it's protection. This is why progress feels risky even when it's logical. You can see the upside clearly, but your body doesn't trust it yet. Because trust is not built through ideas. It's built through outcomes. And your system remembers outcomes far longer than intentions. Think of a worker who spent 20 years in a dark salt mine. It was cold and the air was thick, but he knew every corner. One day, he is offered a job in a sunlit garden. He looks at the sun and his eyes sting. He feels the open space and his heart races with panic. He chooses to go back into the mine, not because he loves the salt, but because the mine is certainty and the garden is uncertainty. Your system is loyal to the mine that kept you alive, even if it is slowly draining you. Think about how many times effort led to exhaustion, how often trying harder resulted in burnout, how many risks didn't pay off the way you expected. Your system learned something from that. Not consciously, automatically. It learned that growth is expensive. So now, when opportunity appears, your system doesn't evaluate the reward. It evaluates the cost. And if the cost feels like instability, it pulls you back toward what's familiar. Even if familiar is slowly draining you. This is the uncomfortable truth behind why people stay stuck. They are not lazy. They are not unmotivated. They are not lacking discipline. They are loyal to a system that once kept them alive. Morgan Housel calls this survival over returns. In life, it shows up as choosing certainty over expansion. A smaller, predictable discomfort feels safer than a larger, uncertain possibility. So the system chooses stability again and again. This is also why forcing change rarely works. When you apply pressure, the system doesn't interpret it as encouragement. It interprets it as threat. And when a system feels threatened, it doesn't open. It tightens. This is where most advice fails. It assumes the problem is motivation. It assumes the solution is discipline. But discipline is just a signal. And if the system associates that signal with danger, it will resist it every time. Not out of defiance, out of design. Real change begins when the system learns something new, not through force, through evidence. Small proof that progress does not equal loss. That effort does not always lead to depletion. That movement can happen without collapse. If a bridge is broken, you don't fix it by driving a heavier truck across it to test it. You fix it by replacing one plank at a time. Each plank is a small proof that the bridge can hold weight again. Once the system feels safe enough, behavior changes naturally, not dramatically, quietly. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop needing constant motivation. You stop fighting your own resistance because the system no longer sees progress as a threat. This is what Morgan Housel was really pointing toward. Behavior is not the enemy. It's the messenger. And survival instincts don't disappear. They get updated. Your mind will always choose safety first. The difference is whether safety is defined by the past or redesigned for the future. You were never afraid of success. You were protecting stability. And once you understand that, you stop trying to overpower the system. You start working with it,